Hello, friends. My name is Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segarra.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
We're gonna have fun today.
Oh, yes. So I just want to let you folks know we don't always know what we're going to talk about.
No. We'll kind of like, hey man, what do you want to talk about today? And I was like, oh, let's talk about this. I'm like, okay,
Right,
let's do that.
right. And I like it because it's more organic and we
Mhm.
go from week to week. I don't hit you up until possibly the day before, maybe a couple
Mhm.
days before so I can prepare. And sometimes I'll pitch something, you'll pitch something, but we come together and it's working out. It's
Yeah,
working out.
because we would spend hours talking about movies just without a microphone. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So it's very organic. So like when we're just like, hey, you want to riff a little bit? It's like let's riff a little bit. Let's have fun.
Correct. Correct. Absolutely. So before we get started, this isn't the last time. I'm going to remind you guys, if you could please like, share, and subscribe the Panel Bros, we would appreciate it, and let your friends know about us. We're on all social media platforms at our handles that you can see right here on the video. So thank you for that in advance. Today we are going to be talking about original movies.
Original films. You know those things that people say aren't made anymore.
Right.
Yeah, those movies.
So before, because I made a list,
Hmm.
I like having stuff to show. And before we get to that list, what comes to your mind, Ricardo, when you hear people say they're not making original movies? Where do you think that's coming from when people start saying that?
Man, it always it ruffles my feathers a little bit. I think
Okay.
because we spend a lot of time, looking into what's coming out, researching movies. There will be times where I'll just go online and search on YouTube movie trailer, and I'll change the setting to movie trailers from this month just to see what's coming out on the horizon. That's how I found out
Right.
about a lot of movies. And when people say that they're not really making original films anymore, that there's only remakes and sequels and things of that nature, and to a degree they are accurate. There is a lot of a mess of IPs and things like that, but original films are getting made. They are getting made. The reality is that there's a couple variables. You have studios, and we'll talk about studios and original films and IP, and then there's people that just it's on I don't want to sound mean, but they're not really putting in the effort
Mm.
to find these original films. And so when people say that, oh, they aren't making them anymore, it's like, well, they are. And I'm going to put maybe just a tiny percentage of the blame on you for maybe not looking into what's out there.
That sounds like a nice summary as far as my feelings go as well. I I think it's folks as general because not everybody's a hardcore movie watcher.
Hmm.
A lot of people think they're a hardcore movie watcher. They're just hardcore fans. But a
Hmm.
hardcore fan and a hardcore movie watcher is two different things because a lot of folks, and we will get into this, they mostly watch IPs.
Hmm.
They'll watch the Disneys, the Star Wars, the Marvel, the DC, those types of things, and um, other blockbuster franchises like Jurassic Park. I can go on and on. And those are the only things they know, but they know because that's all that we see trailers wise
Hmm.
online, TV. If you still watch live TV, but at the same token, it's the studios too.
Yeah.
It's a low budget movie, so they're going to go low budget with advertisement, and we will get into that soon as far as that goes. But we're going to start off with a share here, and I am going to share a list of original films that Ricardo and I saw in 2020. Now, it's either something I saw, something Ricardo saw, or something we both saw.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna let you guys that you're listening right now take a guess how many original films between Ricardo and I that we saw. Take a guess. I'm gonna
It's
let
just
you
like
go here.
just pick a random number
Pick a number. Pick a
of how many
number.
original films that we saw.
Right. Okay. So if you said five, that's too low.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
If you said 10, it's still too low.
Hmm.
If you said 15, it's still too low. So now
Just
you're
keep
saying,
just keep going up. Just keep
so
going
now you're
up.
saying to yourself, they didn't see 20 original movies last year, did they? It's still too low. So
Yep.
I'm going to just stop the anticipation here and show you the list of original movies that Ricardo and I saw. If you can see what we see, and this was just me just making the effort, it's probably more than this.
Yeah,
But
yeah. There's definitely more than 35, but this is a solid
right,
foundation
this
to
is just
show.
correct. Now, there's definitely more than this overall, but as far as between Ricardo and myself, yeah, 35 movies, folks.
Mm-hmm.
How
It
many
was.
how many could you name without this list in front of you before I even said that? You
Mm-hmm.
know, to anybody watching or listening. So, yeah, you were
It's
gonna
funny. It's funny. Someone mentioned something to me the other day where I had asked people, "Hey, what was your favorite movie of the year?" I just wanted to see what people would say,
right.
and obviously, I got a lot of IP films and whatnot. And a buddy of mine said, like, "Oh, I've only seen, I forget what number he gave me,"
Right.
and I said, "Oh, for 2022, I've seen 52 films." And he was like, 52, like he was blown away at the amount
Right.
of films that I had seen that year. And it's like, yeah, 52. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
And that's
in
what
the
you could remember when you logged it
yeah,
because you
yeah,
weren't logging
like
it throughout the year. Right.
I wasn't. I just started logging, so I was going through
Right.
and logging all the different videos. I was like, well, I saw 52 movies, and there's definitely more. And there was a lot of originals in
Right.
there. And it comes back to the point again where it's like original films are being made. Sometimes you just have to put a little bit of effort in. Like you said, when it comes to the studios and promoting these projects, there's a reason why the studios aren't investing that much money into promoting these films or even giving them an opportunity theatrically, because and look, I don't want people to think that we're just digging on IPs. We love IP films. There are great
Absolutely.
IP films. I don't want this to be a you have to watch original films, their art and the other IP is bad. No, I love IP. I love Star Wars, I love Indiana Jones, I love comic book films, I love all that. But this is basically, in response to saying, hey, original films aren't being made anymore when they are. We talked about streaming services on how they're giving directors an opportunity to make these films, but as you can see on this list here, these are just 35. These are 35, and they're very easy to find on streaming services, HBO Max, Netflix, Amazon Prime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all there for you to just go look into it.
Correct. And we're going to get into the discussion a little bit, but I just want to go down this list here and we can just take a look here. So, The Adam Project,
Mm-hmm.
Babylon, Damien Chazelle. I went to the theater to see that, and not doing too well financially and critically, but you know what? It was a Chazelle movie. I had to go.
Mm-hmm.
The Banshees of Inisherin. We're going to hear a lot about that when Golden Globes and Oscars come around. Barbarian, The Black Phone, Bodies, 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 Bones and All, The Curse of Bridge Hollow, Day Shift, Don't Worry, Darling, Emily the Criminal, Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's a movie there's a movie you're gonna be hearing us talking about for in the near future and possibly after that as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have The Fablemans, another awards movie expected anyway. We have Fall, nice thriller there. I went to the movies to see that too. The Fallout, Fresh, Hustle, The Immaculate Room, Kimmy, The Lost City, Love Hard, Men, The Menu, enjoy The Menu, Nope, The Northman, Resurrection, Smile, Speak No Evil, Tar, They/Them. Nice, clever title there.
Yeah, very clever.
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, hilarious.
I love that movie. I love that movie.
Hilarious. And for those of you that don't know, it's an original movie starring Nicolas Cage as a caricature of himself, and
Mm-hmm.
it's absolutely ridiculous. And we both enjoyed it.
Yep.
We have The Valet, Windfall, The Woman King, another awards movie,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have X. And I included Pearl because X was an original movie by Ty West, and then he went and made a prequel and released it the same year. So I included that in there in case you didn't know. So
How insane is it that he got to make that and put it out the same year?
A24, man, they love him.
They supposedly they greenlit it while he was filming
Yeah.
X, that they really liked what they were seeing, and they were like, "Hey, man, you got more?" And he's like, "I got more," and he made it within the same year. That blew me away.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It just that lets us know how much A24 believes in their directors and their
Hmm.
visions, and obviously the acting of Mia Goth. So,
Dude.
she did such a great job in X, and then they said, okay, and then Pearl, and then it was just like, oh, wow.
Yup.
So, with the exception of the obvious ones that we've talked about many times, is there thoughts on any of these here real fast that you wanted to put out there as far as why you went to the theater to watch it, or why, here we go, why did you pay to rent it at your house? Because I want to share something about you. So folks, you have a lot of different avenues of how you can watch a movie. You can go
Hmm.
to the movie theater, and a lot of people don't go. Some people go. Since streaming started rising up, not as many people go as much anymore. Okay, well, you have two options at that point. You can wait to rent it,
Hmm.
and you're going to spend almost as much as going to the movie theater, possibly more, to rent it at home. But then you don't have to leave the house.
Yes.
You don't have to leave the house. You don't have to deal with the movie theater, people talking, all that good stuff. So you can pay to rent it at the house, and it's usually about $20 when you pay to rent it, and then it starts coming down. And then a cheaper rental, maybe a few months in, you're looking at between $5 to $7, something
Hmm.
like that. And then if you wait even longer, it will hit one of your streaming services, and then you don't have to pay at all because you're already paying the streaming service.
Yup.
Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Apple, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, you're in a situation where you don't really get to go to the movies as much
Hmm.
because you are a family man. You have two young daughters,
I
and
have two babies, and it is extremely difficult for me to be out at the theaters. But
correct.
best believe there are movies that I have paid $20 to watch at home because I love movies and I want to watch it and I want to be a part of the conversation. I want to see what
Right.
people are talking about. You got award season coming up and things of that nature. And just sometimes you'll tell me something, you say, "Hey man, you got to see this. This is right up your alley."
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh man, good." And as soon as it's available for home theater rent, whether it's $20 or $5, I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch it."
Yeah, I like that. And I still have the ability to go to the theater when I can, and I pay for the unlimited.
Hmm.
That was a new thing that started a few years ago. And once I heard about that, I said, I'm in. Because I used to go to the discount days. They would have discount days at certain theaters.
Hmm.
And I believe it would be like $5 a movie, something like that. And I would have a double feature or a triple feature that day. And then I would wait until the following week. And I would do that. But the unlimited, depending on what movie theater you go to, allows you to watch. Well, we'll do some free advertising. Last I checked, AMC does 3 a week, and
Okay.
then it renews the following week. And Regal does unlimited all the time.
Oh wow.
So
Let's
you can
see.
go as much as you want. So um, I've had both. So at the time I had an AMC close to me, and I had AMC to start out, but now I no longer have an AMC close to me. Now it's Regal, so I do Regal. I have several Regals
Okay.
that I go to, so I do that, and I usually go, and if not, I'll stream. I'll stream if I don't make it out, but
Hmm.
it's because I have the time,
Yeah,
and I get it, folks. It's not everybody has the time. Not everyone feels like. See, streaming made it so easy for people to
it
say, "I'll
did.
just wait. I don't want to get
Hmm.
up and go anymore." And I think tickets have gotten a little bit cheaper since the unlimiteds have come out. It's the selling point to get the unlimited,
Yeah, yeah.
because 2 or 3 tickets, there's your unlimited for the month between $20 and $25. So if there's a big month, maybe the summer seasons, you have a movie coming out almost every week that you want to see,
Hmm.
pays for itself during those months. But I, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think the list would be this big when I started putting it together.
It's surprising. That's why when you said it, like, because it's not wrong to say when you see a lot of movies throughout the year, sometimes you tend to forget, like, oh my God, I did see that movie. You know what I mean? And not because
Right.
it doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad movie, but you watch so much content, and sometimes you gotta you got to remind yourself, like, oh wait, like when I was going through and making a list of all the movies I saw, I was like, oh, that was this year. Time starts to blur together sometimes. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, that was in 2022. Okay, so I can add that to the list of movies watched and whatnot. But I'm happy, and like you said, I know there's more than 35.
Right.
I know there's more, but yeah, this is still surprising to see. Like, oh wow, like
Yeah. I know you don't go often, but is there any on the list that you remember going to the theater to see?
anything on here. I'm looking
Yeah.
right now.
I know you paid
This
to
is
rent a lot of them, but
Yeah, this is going to be so funny because I think after looking at every single film on this one,
Mhm.
I think the only one I went for was Nope. Nope was the
okay,
one that I went to the
Jordan
theater.
Peele.
Yep,
Yeah.
because like I going to the theater obviously is a little bit more difficult. So I have to make sure that if I go to the theater, it has to feel like an event in a way,
Correct.
because then that way I can get help, I can get assistance. But
Right.
hey, I talk to my parents, but hey, can you watch the kids for a few hours? And I don't want to burden with that every single week to go watch a new movie. I don't want to constantly drop off the kids, but hey,
Right.
can you watch the kids? I want to go. I don't want to take advantage. So okay, every once in a while when I can go to the theaters, I'll go for an experience that I think is going to be elevated by the big screen. And when I saw the trailer for Nope, I was like 100% that has to be
Yeah.
experienced on a big screen, because some movies you don't need the big screen atmosphere to for the emotion in the film to be conveyed. Like I could watch The Fablemans in a theater or at home and still feel the exact same way. But watching Nope at the theater and watching Nope at home might feel drastically different
Right.
with sound design, score, et cetera, the effects and whatnot. So Nope, I went to the theater and I'm continuing to look through, and yeah, that's the only one I was able to make it
Sure.
to. Nope.
Yeah, no problem.
Everything else I watched on streaming. I paid $20, or luckily for me, it came out relatively quick and it would be like a 4.99 rental, which is not a big
Right.
deal.
Right. And then anything you didn't see, I saw. So
Yes.
I didn't review with you. I'm wondering out of these how many you didn't see. So that's a obviously we can't do it right now, but
Yeah.
I'd be curious. But I don't know. I
There's
think
it
you
look it
saw
looks like I see a lot of
you've
these.
seen a lot of these.
And that makes me happy because again, I was
Yeah.
also kind of worried that I was like, oh, maybe I didn't see enough this year.
I think you saw at
And
least
through,
20. I think you've seen at least 20 of these easy.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, I've seen that, I've seen that, I've seen that, I've seen that.
Yeah.
There was a week, there was a week where like every day I was watching like one or two.
Yeah, it's
Like
good.
there was a solid week, just like, hey man, set aside some time, watch at least 1 to 2 films. If just one, that's fine. And that's what I did.
Absolutely. So let's I'm gonna leave that up for a little bit longer. If
Okay.
I've I heard a lot of things with a few movies,
Hmm.
and it was like I couldn't stay home. I had to go see it,
Yeah.
and it happened a few times. We'll just go alphabetically. Like I heard things about Barbarian, and
Oh
people
man.
were throwing words like scary,
Hmm.
original. You need to see this. You need to see this. So, and horror's not really one of my favorite genres, but when I'm
Hmm.
hearing like must watch scary, I'm just like, okay, well, let me go check it out. And I know a lot of people from the horror community, the horror movie community. So I want to be able to discuss this with them
Hmm.
when I see them. So that's why I went to see Barbarian. I think the trailer for Everything Everywhere All at Once sold me,
Yeah.
and there was no way I wasn't going to see that and then after I found out it was an original movie and it's just the visuals, and we're not going to go into a review right now,
Hmm.
but spoiler alert, we both enjoyed it, obviously.
Yes.
But there was no way I was going to miss that, so I had to go see that. And then a little bit further down, Fall.
Hmm.
I like a good thriller, and it just looked like I would enjoy it more in the movie theater.
Hmm.
And it's about the two girls that they make that climb, and I'm glad I went to see it in the theater because I enjoyed it more in the theater, and that sense of tension that they
Hmm.
could fall, hence the title of the movie, it made the movie for me. So that's why I went to see that. And man, I saw so many of these in the theater.
Yeah.
I was hearing things about Smile when
Oh
Smile came
man.
out. And they said the same things about Babylon, but then people were saying it's the scariest movie they've seen in years.
Hmm.
And then I was hearing scariest movie of the year, and then they had
Yes.
the viral marketing at the sports games with people with that smile. Like,
Mhm. The marketing was genius for that movie.
yeah,
Like I kept hearing a lot of good things about it, and I was like, man, I really want to go see it. That one landed relatively fast on streaming platforms. It was almost one, yeah, I think it was one of those where it was like, hey, it's still in the theaters, but you can pay money to watch it and whatnot. And I was like, all right, so I immediately got on it. But yeah, the marketing for that film was so well done.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for anyone wondering, we both enjoyed it. We were both disturbed by it.
I love Smile. I'm just gonna put it out there. If I don't say it later, I want to say it now. Horror films had
There we go. I
year,
was going to get to that. Yeah.
a great year with originality and just changing it up. Barbarian was completely original. Smile was original. Like in movies in general, a lot of movies borrow ideas from one another because almost everything's been done already, right? Like we've
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot of points here and there. So whenever you can do something fresh, no pun intended for the film Fresh,
Right.
but when you can do certain things that are fresh in any genre, that's exciting. And I wanted to be able to go see these in the theaters because there have been times, I know you've done it and I've done it. There have been times where I'll go to the movies because I just want to support the movie,
Right.
because I want more movies like that to be made. And I'll go, hey, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm going to go watch it again just to help the box office. Even if it's just me, it's like, hey, man, I'm going to go watch it again because I really want more movies like this to get made. I try
Right.
to spread as much good word as possible. Say, hey, guys, go see it. Go see it. If I really enjoy some, I'm usually telling at least 3 to 5 friends, hey, please go and watch this movie. You will not be disappointed. If you want to see more movies like this, go see it.
Right.
So I wasn't able to go see them in the theater, but I was able to do the in-theater rental at home, which is, again, it's $20,
Mm-hmm.
but it does help towards that box office. They count it as an in-home theater rental, which is why it's so expensive.
Right. Yeah. And to your point, I know people that when it first came out, the
Mhm.
idea of the $20 rental, it was during the pandemic, obviously,
Yes.
because they wanted people to see it if they
Mhm.
were uncomfortable going to the movie theater.
Yep.
And at the time, people with families felt like they were benefiting more because
Yes.
instead of paying for a ticket for themselves, their significant other, and if they had children for each child, and then on
Mhm.
top of that, you can't bring kids to the theater without having snacks for them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes couples like doing that as an activity, having snacks when they go to see the movie.
Mhm.
It adds up. So for them, paying the $20 to watch it at the house, it worked out for them,
The
but
comfort of your own home, you can pause,
can't beat it.
rewind.
You
Can't beat
absolutely
it.
can't. You can't beat it. And but then I noticed people without big families started jumping on.
Mhm.
They started jumping on. Like obviously, the theater. It's never really been a big family event for you.
Mhm.
Usually you're a very happily married man, but you like to go alone sometimes
I
because
love going to the theater
it
alone.
doesn't always work out for you and her to go together. It's
Mhm.
because, well, let's be honest, it's more of a you thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's more of a you thing, and that's fine, and that's great that she supports you in that you do get to go alone.
Oh,
Or
she'll
is
say it all
that
the time. She goes, "Hey, you really want to see that?" She goes, "I really don't want to see it." She
right?
goes, "But if you want to see it, you can go." And I'm
Yeah,
like, "I'm out. I'm gonna go
I
watch
think
it."
that's awesome. Yeah, and then when you do your rentals, it's the same
Hmm.
thing. She supports you in renting in the
Yeah.
rentals. That it's if she wanted to see it with you, she would let you know. But most of the time, that's
Yeah.
Ricardo's thing.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So I
There's
want to.
there's there's certain movies where I have to beg her to watch
Oh yeah,
because I'll say, listen, it's very good, but it's very emotional. And she
right.
goes, "Oh, I don't want to be sad." I'm like, "But it's a great
Yeah, there we
experience." So,
go.
she's like, so it's not really her. So she'll be like, "No, no, no, I'm not gonna watch." I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine. It's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay. That's all right."
it's cool. And I know people like that too. Both
Mhm.
single or in a relationship, and they still will pay the money because it's just convenient. It's
Yeah.
just convenient to stream, and on occasion I've done the same thing.
Hmm.
Even though I have uh, the unlimited, it's probably not playing, or I'm having a busy week that week. I will pay from time to time if I can't make it. I have more free time now, so that's probably not going to happen as much. So I'll probably be going to the movie theater more. But
Nice.
I was uh I was a little busy this past couple years.
Yeah, yeah, you were.
I was in college, everybody. For those of you that
Hmm.
don't know, I was getting my master's degree, but Now that that's over with, I'm kind of more free as far as that goes. So people are jumping on, and once again, listen, money doesn't grow on trees, to use an old phrase. Some of
Mhm.
us, some people, they don't want to drop $20 to see a movie, so they will
Yeah.
wait. They will wait till it comes down. They won't even pay the rental fee. They will
Yeah.
say, "I'm paying X amount of dollars every month for the streaming service," and it when it adds up, it's like an old school cable bill at this point.
Yeah.
$15 here, $20 there, and you add every single streaming service, it ends up being like a cable bill. So folks, um, they'll just do that. So that brings me to our next point here.
Mhm.
We're going to look at the box office. And because we need to see how the box office is doing worldwide when it comes to original movies.
Yeah.
And perhaps that can give us some answers as to why people aren't aware of more original movies and such. So this is 2022, and we're not going to go over every single movie. We're just going to go down and just point out the original movies and how far down we have to go. So, uh, and the ones that you may or may not recognize, folks, they are foreign films, and I did the work of finding out if they were originals or not. So I can't believe I missed this. I believe Watergate Bridge. I don't believe that was an original. If you could look that up while I'm doing this, Rick, I'd
Yeah. I'll look
appreciate
it up
that.
right now.
Yeah, I don't believe that was an original. I would have included on the list. Um, Moon Man was number 10, was an adapted web comic. And then we go down a little bit further. The Bad Guys, number 16, animated. That was a children's book before they animated. But a little side note there, folks. A lot of original movies end up being animated. Your Disney's, your Pixar's, your DreamWorks. So I do usually count those as far as original movies go, but it doesn't look like Ricardo and I saw that many or any at all. Well, nothing came to mind. So let's see here. Number 17. So Bullet Train was based on a novel. So that was not an original. Too Cool to Kill was an adaptation. That was another foreign film. So that's a no. The first original movie it gets to number 20, and that's Smile.
Oh, Smile.
It took us getting to number 20 to get the first original movie. It's Smile. And
Mhm.
it's a horror film too. And horror films don't typically do that much. And I'm looking at the list here. It's the best-selling horror movie of 2022. So there's a little trivia for you folks. So Smile. And then after Smile, that's when we start getting some more originals. We have a um nice little streak here. Nice View is an original. That's a foreign film. Then we go down to number 23, The Lost City. That was original.
Yes.
Nope at 25. That's an original. Then we go down a little bit further, 27. Excuse me, 26. Ticket to Paradise. That's an original.
Mm-hmm.
We got 28, The Black Phone. That's an original. We go down to number 34, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Of course, that's an original. And I feel bad. 35, RRR is an original, but I have not seen it yet.
It is bonkers.
Oh, wow. So, there we go. So I missed that. I didn't put that on the list. That's one that you saw.
It is bonkers in the most fun way.
Yeah,
it is so much fun.
I read that it was the biggest budget for any Indian movie ever made.
Mm-hmm. It shows they went in.
Yeah.
It's such a good time. It's a pretty long film. It's 3 hours plus, but it is it's on Netflix. Hey man, you can pause, take breaks.
All right.
It's a fun time.
Good stuff. And let's see. We have The Roundup. That's a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
We have The Woman King at 39. That's an original. Don't Worry, Darling at 41. That's an original.
Mm-hmm.
Number 46, we have Suzume. That I had to look that up. It's an animated movie. It's foreign film, and that's original. And the rest of these, 47, The Menu, that's an original as well. So I didn't count. It's about 10, 12 movies.
Yeah,
out of the top
more or
50.
less.
So, um, to be honest with you, that's a pretty good year for originals as far
It
as the top
is.
50 go. Usually it's like five.
Yeah, I was gonna say for them for us to see that many so far, I'm like that's actually pretty decent. So again, so when people say original films aren't being made, they are being made, and
Right.
we can get them better numbers. Like let's try to get them better numbers, but they're fighting for their lives, man. They're fighting
Right.
for their lives against massive IPs. Now, I will say, and I don't think it's a form of cheating, that horror films I'll say it's a little bit easier for horror films to draw as original films because people want to be scared, right? That's
Right.
people enjoy that. So if all like Barbarian, Smile, all people really had to say to get you interested in going to see that movie is someone telling you, "Oh my God, it was so scary." And it's like, oh, really? It's like, I love being scared. So they have a little bit of an easier time, but still they're battling against, Jurassic World and
Yeah,
whatnot. You know what I mean? Like it's so hard for them to compete on that level financially.
exactly. So we just had a look at the 2022 box office, and not surprisingly, Top Gun Maverick was the number one spot
Mm-hmm.
for a while. Avatar, as of this recording, The Way of Water, has only been out for less than a month, and it's well on its way to being the number one movie of 2022.
Yup.
So it's 1.44 million as opposed to 1.48 million. So
It's gonna make 2 billion. It's gonna make 2 billion by the
yeah,
time it's all done.
yeah, pretty wild. So we just had to look at the top 50, and probably, but it's pretty good year for originals, about one
Mm-hmm.
fifth,
Yeah.
about one fifth. Let's take a look all time as far as highest grossing movies annually. Let's see how many originals did annually.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I feel like that one's not going to be nearly as good as this one.
No.
Nope. I could tell just by looking at it. Look at that.
Yeah. So we're gonna do 2022. I won't go
Mhm.
back further than 25 years.
Okay.
So we have to go back. It's all the way down to 2013.
Hmm.
Frozen, $1.2 billion. It's a Disney movie. I
Hmm.
mean, some people say it was based on the Ice Queen,
Yeah.
but for argument's sake, I mean, we'd never heard of an Elsa. To my understanding, there was never an Elsa
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Anna and I can't think of the names of the characters right now. Olaf. There was never a movie with those people in it. So,
Mhm.
and then before that, if you want to look at live action, you have to go all the way back to 2009, the first Avatar movie, 2.7 billion.
Yeah.
And at the time, it became the highest selling movie of all time.
Hmm.
It was eventually beaten by Avengers Endgame,
Yep.
2.79 million. And shout out to Infinity War, over 2 billion as well.
Yep.
Very small club. Only 3 movies have ever made more than 2 billion.
We're gonna have a fourth now with Avatar: Way of Water.
Correct. Correct. So we go back a little bit further and got to keep going down here. Look at this. We had Pirates movies back to back here.
Yeah, the pirates, dude. The people
Yeah.
really, really like the pirate movies.
Did good. We had 2 Lord of the Rings movies back to back here.
Mm-hmm.
02, 03. But we have to go all the way back to 98. Armageddon, 553 million.
Yeah.
So that was, but if you noticed, this was before IPs got really big.
Yeah.
It was before IPs got really big. It was before, you said this, and I'm going to always come back to this. There was movies before The Matrix, and there was movies after The
Yes.
Matrix. And whether they were IPs or not, people wanted to start challenging as far as how far they could stretch that budget
Yep.
to give like a visual spectacle. And that probably aided in budgets, being higher. But Armageddon was an original, and then Titanic was an original. There's James Cameron again,
Yep.
2.1 billion. So, oh, there we go. There's another $2 billion movie. So there's 4 right now. So there'll be
Mhm.
5, and Cameron will have 3 of them.
Yes, it's insane. It's
Yeah.
insane that money he's bringing in with these films.
So, and then we want to split hairs. Okay, Titanic was a real thing, it's
Mhm.
a fictional story based on a real thing. So if you want to
Yes.
fight about that being original or not, be our guest. For all intents and purposes, put it this way: there wasn't a Titanic sequel.
Yeah, yeah.
It
They
was a
couldn't build a massive IP off of that thing if they
right.
wanted
It
to. It
was
was
a
like,
one
no,
and done. There's no such thing as a Jack and a Rose.
no,
We
no,
didn't.
no, no,
No one picked up a novel and said, "Oh, look, we're going to make this movie about Jack and Rose." No, didn't happen.
no, no.
And then we're gonna, the cutoff. I said 25 years, so we'll
Mhm.
do from 2023 back. Independence Day was an original, and
Yeah.
817 million. I think that was Roland Emmerich. Was that Roland Emmerich?
Oh wait, it might be
He does a lot
because
of
I
disaster
he's
movies.
yeah, I'll say he's associated with a lot of those things. I'm gonna
Yeah.
find out right now who that is because it might just be.
Was Roland Emmerich.
It was right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, he
And
likes them ensemble cast and natural
yeah.
disaster films. That's what he likes. I remember Independence Day, and excuse me, Independence Day being a really big deal. I remember going to the movies to see that. It was really big in pop culture. Will Smith was coming off Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Right.
It was like the first time he was being showcased as the movie star. Again, you had an ensemble cast. That was a big deal. I remember that. That was a
It's
big
good
deal.
stuff. So counting all those movies, it comes out to about 5 movies in the
Mhm.
past 25 years that were number one um, for the year. So once again, very small percentage.
Very.
5 out of 25. And then if we want to split hairs, some people could say, well, Frozen's not completely original and Armageddon or and Titanic's not completely original because they were based on possibly something other things. And if we want to split those hairs, then we're looking at 3 out of 25.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whew, why aren't people paying money to see original movies, Rick?
It's oh man, there's so many things, right? There's so many things, right? Like some people, and obviously I think many people are. There was a time before IP films took over. We mentioned that there was a time before, and I remember I used to go to the movies every week. I'd go 2 times a week, sometimes 3 times a week, and I remember growing up in a time where IP didn't rule the world, and you went whether it was because of movie stars or just because a trailer seemed interesting. Um, and I think that over time, there's a couple variables. I think some people feel that they don't want to invest in spending as much money as they do at the theaters for something unless they already have a love for it. So the massive IP, comic book films, when people go to see the Avengers is because they've grown up going, I love Iron Man, I love Captain America, I love Spider-Man. So they're willing to spend that money. So many people, it's a financial thing. I feel like don't want to spend how much it costs for a ticket and soda and popcorn on a film that's just about a couple going through a divorce. You know what I mean? They're like, I don't want to go to movies to see that. There's that, and I think a lot of times people don't even know what's out there, and I think it comes back to the argument of people saying, why don't they make this anymore? And they do, but because the studios have sadly realized that the IPs are what bringing in the money. The
Right.
studios are very reluctant on giving budgets to films that are original because they're afraid people aren't going to go see them. And it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of a situation. Because then the
Right.
studios don't want to bank on these films because they're afraid people won't go see them. But then people are like, there's no original films coming out, so I don't get to see them. But there are, but the studios aren't banking them enough. It's this ugly cycle of people just not knowing, some people just not wanting to spend, studios not wanting to put the effort. I mean, we talked about horror for a second, right? We talked about Smile and we talked about Barbarian. To my knowledge, both of their budgets were extremely light in comparison to a lot of other major films, and they have to work within these tight budgets because the studio is like, hey man, all right, we'll allow you to make this movie, but we're not going to give you the type of money that we would give a Marvel project or anything like that, or a DC project. It's like, hey man, we got to put big bucks in those movies. But these smaller scale horror films, they're not getting those budgets, and those budgets affect the film and they affect the promotion as well. So sometimes people don't even know about things, so they have to cater on word of mouth or viral marketing, like we talked about with Smile. They had a bunch of people go to a baseball game sporting events and just stood there smiling at the camera, got people talking. People were on social media say, what does this mean? What is this? What is this? And people, there were many people that didn't know it was movie promotion, but it got them talking. And then people would say, hey, it's actually a movie. And it was like,
Mhm.
oh, so they worked really well. But when you're talking about massive IPs, you're talking about Jurassic World, you're talking about superhero films. You go to a McDonald's and you'll see it on a cup. You'll go to its through a city, you'll see it on a billboard. You know what I mean? You'll see ads on YouTube. You'll see all this for those massive IPs, but original films don't get that nearly as much, and that's a studio thing. Studios are afraid to put money into these things because a lot of people aren't going out to see them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a theory as far as why people aren't going, and I left this up for a little bit while you were talking, so people could
Mhm.
look and see. For all intents and purposes, these are the movies that we can name that can most likely qualify as an original over the
Mhm.
past 25 years. And if you notice there, 1996, 1997, 1998, the number one movie of the year was an original movie.
Mhm.
And let's go to all time so we can take a look at things a little bit more. So Armageddon, and then 99, that was the year The Matrix came out. Wasn't the number one movie that year, but then we had Star Wars The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And this year was an interesting year because that's when IP started coming back again.
Yes.
We had the Star Wars, and then at the time we didn't know it, but Matrix will go on to become a franchise. And then we had, did the first X-Men come out that year?
I
No,
believe I think it's the year 2000,
2000,
right?
yes.
Came out 2000.
I think Blade came out in 98, if I'm not mistaken, 98 or 99.
Okay, I'll find out
Yeah, please do that.
because that came out relatively early too. Blade came out in 1998.
Okay. So, but at the time, superhero movies weren't a big thing. So it
Mm-mm.
wasn't like it was going to get pushed at the box office. And that was when things started changing. IPs just started getting made left and right. It wasn't the first one, but Mission Impossible 2 ended up being the number one movie of 2000. And then we had these book adaptations. We had Harry Potter, and then we had the
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings trilogy. I am baffled that Shrek 2 was the number one movie of 2004, but it made enough noise after the first movie that people went to go see it. People were going with their kids to see it.
Yep.
People were going to see it. Kids, whenever an animated movie ends up being number one, you better believe it's because the entire family's going to see it.
Yes. A lot of families went to go see that movie because Shrek was one of those movies that kids could like, and there was also things in there for adults as well. And for a family outing, it worked out perfectly.
Absolutely. So if you look here, then I mean, I don't know if the first pirate, would you consider the first Pirates an original? It was based on a Disney ride.
Yeah, it's based on a ride. So it's based on, I don't know. It's a little that
Yeah,
one's a little tricky because they're
yeah,
they're based on a property. It is based on a
right,
property. I don't know how many people knew that prior. So
right,
that one's a little iffy too.
right. A little iffy, but in any case, it gained enough traction that two of the sequels ended up being the number one movies for back to
Hmm.
back years,
Yeah.
and then the Dark Knight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dark Knight changed. So superhero movies were already gaining traction, but if you
Hmm.
look, it was the first superhero movie that ended up being number one for the year.
Yeah. It was a Dark Knight. Yep.
I don't know how I'm not going to go down, but I don't know how far back we have to go. But I want to say it's curiosity. It
I'm
might be
looking
the
to.
first. It might be the first one.
Yeah, yeah, because now you're going back into the 80s,
Yeah.
and I can't. Yeah,
No.
I think that was it. I think that
Yep.
was
And
the
then
first
Richard.
one.
I'm not going to go back further than Richard Donner's Superman. So
No, we
yep,
don't need to.
and that's not on there. So The Dark Knight was the first time. See, folks, you're getting some trivia now. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
So The Dark Knight in '08, and yeah. So what I was trying to say is that shift started because that's when all these properties started coming out more, and the
Yeah.
studios started seeing, oh, wow, we can make money off of this stuff.
Yep.
Like Star Wars started doing well, and then the book adaptations, and then that sparked something.
Hmm.
We had Harry Potter, we had Lord of the Rings, and then they ended up being number one for the year, but they ended up, the young adult novels, they ended up
Yes.
doing pretty well. The best selling one is probably The Hunger Games. But people it just started being a cash grab. What can make us money? What can make us money? Because, then Marvel Studios started doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ended up being, okay, now what can we do to compete with that?
Yeah.
Warner. And unfortunately, while Warner Brothers did very well financially to compete with that, critically, they couldn't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they couldn't. And that's, we don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but I just, okay. When you guys go to that site and we're looking at scores that I will not name, I'm going to go as long as I can without naming that site. I want you to take a look, and the left side is the critic score, and the right side is the audience score. And excuse me. And I want you to notice whenever the critic score is low and the audience score is really high, that's for a reason.
Yeah, I have so much fun with that. Like when I go and I see a critic score and it's like, oh, 42%.
Right.
And then I'll look at the audience score and it says 89%. And I'm like, that is a huge gap between the critics and the audience. And that kind of thing makes me excited because I'm like, wait a minute, why is there such a big shift there? You know what I mean? And majority of the time I'll go and I'll be like, oh, I really enjoyed that.
Right.
I don't know where that 42% came from, but hey, what are you going to do?
Exactly. So we just had a look, it's just as simple as the IPs were making more money. So,
yeah.
But we just had a look. It's not like the studio stopped making them. They stopped marketing them.
Exactly. Marketing is so big and people don't realize that a lot of times when we're talking about how much money is given, a budget is given to a film, a lot of people just contribute it to, the production of the film.
Right.
But they don't include budget. And I'm like, guys, you got it. I mean, they don't include promoting. And I'm like, guys, that's part of the budget. So if they give you a budget, you have to split it between pre-production, production, post-production, and promoting your film.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is I think we're in too deep at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to change. And I mean, it would take somebody like a Christopher Nolan for the next #1 movie to be an original. Sorry, but Avatar: The Way of the Water is a sequel, and I can't.
It's a sequel now. Like,
it's an original property, and I'll give James Cameron credit where credit is due. But it's a sequel at this point.
Yeah, he's building a saga. Like he announced even before this movie came out that it's only the second of 5 films.
Right.
So right away it was like, all right, we've got ourselves a saga. It's building this massive IP property. Right. You know what I mean? Like he knew what he was doing. And the first Avatar made so much money, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna make more. And it's like the Terminator franchise. You know what I mean? When Terminator 1 came out, that was an original idea. It was fantastic. And then it was Terminator 2, Terminator 3, Terminator 4. And it's like, okay, now it's become, a beast of an IP property. And, some studios are just lazy, man. Like they see it way easier to just slap an IP on something.
Right.
As opposed to putting something out. Like, all right, for example, a Joker, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had read online that Todd Phillips traditionally, I don't know if this is true, grain of salt, that Todd Phillips was well aware that a film that he wanted to make, which was a character study, nobody would go see it. He was so worried of working on just a character study, which is what he wanted to do, and put it in the theater. He was like, no one will go see it. So he sat there and he said, wait, what if I make it about the Joker?
Right.
That's a massive IP. And for a rated R movie, it made over $1 billion. Right. $1 billion. And it rode on the IP because at its core, it's a character study film. Joaquin gives an incredible performance, but the entire film is a character study. Many people would argue that he doesn't become Joker into the last 5 minutes of the film, you know? So so many people were like, oh, is it really a Joker film? Is it not? I'm like, listen, like Todd was well aware that if he wanted to make the movie that he traditionally wanted to make, nobody would go see it. So he had to play the game, and he took an IP and attached it to it. And a lot of these directors feel they have to do that. And it's unfortunate that they feel like they have to attach it to an IP to get people to watch it, or just for a studio to greenlight a film. which is why we talked about streaming services like Netflix that are like, hey, you got something you want to make? Come over here and make it.
Right. And I mean, and not to knock the decision, but there was a heavy influence from The King of Comedy and Taxi
Mm-hmm.
Driver. I believe
Yep. A lot.
Both
Yes.
Scorsese movies.
A lot.
And we're looking at the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a conversation. What a decade. A lot of movies came out
Oh,
that
yeah.
very iconic horror blockbuster movies. There was a lot of things that happened during the 70s. I think Donner Superman came out in the 70s too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
It was
it
a
did.
lot
Late
of
70s. Yep.
firsts, a lot of firsts that decade. Jaws,
I think the first Jaws is 100% in the 70s, and
maybe.
I would look that up right now
Yeah.
because I'm pretty 1975.
Yeah.
And that film to this day is considered a masterpiece to many people.
Correct.
It still holds the same weight that it had in the 70s. And it's so awesome when I see the younger generation watching a film from 1975 and still being blown away by it. But yeah, 70s were a good
absolutely.
word.
Yeah. And here's another one, The Exorcist.
Oh, man.
Some people call it the GOAT, the scariest movie of all time, or the greatest horror movie of all time.
You already know this. I have never seen it in full because
Mhm.
it scares the living
Yeah.
out of me, man. It just
But
scares me so bad.
very influential decade. And
Yeah.
that makes me wonder, like, and I don't mind an influence, a director, because art I don't want to say art imitates art. Art inspires art. There we
Yes.
go. You're going to get inspired by somebody. There's not a musician alive that hasn't been inspired by another musician. There's not an actor. There's not a director, and so on and so forth. So they can take that inspiration, but a lot of times the studios, they struggle. So that's why, and we get the remakes and the reboots and so on and so forth, because once again, it just comes back to, we just looked at the money. We spent a lot of time talking today about the money. The movie industry is a business.
Yeah.
They're not looking to make, they want to make movies for the fans as long as we pay.
Yeah. And like people forget, like, there's a committee making these movies. When you have a studio, we've heard horror stories of directors getting into it with the studios and whatnot and walking away from projects, not being able to finish projects. I remember, I believe his name is Josh Trank with the Fantastic Four. That was a really bad situation. And I think he even went on social media and says, we had a really great movie. It's too bad you guys will never see it. Because he halfway through, they thought, to my understanding, this was the first time he was getting a major motion picture with that type of a budget, and a committee was running it, and he wasn't happy about it. And people forget, you got a committee, you got men and women in suits that are saying, hey, what's going to sell? And you may have some very passionate people behind the project that are fighting day after day saying, hey, we have to do this. This is better for the story. This is better for the characters. This is better for the fans. And a studio will sit and say, but what's going to make us more money? And it's sad. It's sad. I know people have seen this too, where there have been either a sequel very late in the game or a quote unquote remake or reboot that feels nothing like the franchise that they know. And the reality is because sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes they just attached an IP to something just to sell the movie.
Right. So I want to start wrapping things up here so if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, you might be wondering, well, what can I do so that the studios, we've already just showed you, it's not that they're not making them, it's not advertising them. So what can we do for the studios to push these original films more, whether it's maybe TV spots? If not, then you're looking at YouTube, Facebook, social media. You see the ads popping up on there for the movies as well. If you have an unlimited, use it.
Yeah, if you have that, you should be taking advantage of that.
You're spending $20 minimal a month already. And if you see something that maybe not be something like a blockbuster or an IP movie, then take the time to go. Go to a matinee. If you don't like dealing with the crowds, go on a matinee. Pick a time of the day and check it out. And to be honest with you, we can say this from experience. Monday through Thursday, it's not busy.
No,
if
it's not
a holiday. The only time
when
when it starts getting busy is Thursday on release day, for
Mhm.
those releases, and then Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So and then even then, Friday morning, not busy.
No, dude, I love going to
You
those
know,
times.
Saturday, Sunday, that's a coin flip, depending on the
Yeah.
movie that you want to go see. But here's the thing. You already know not that many people are going to see these original movies. So if you go to see an original movie, even if it's a nighttime show, you still might not have that many people in your theater.
Yeah.
So that if you have your unlimited, then use it. If you don't have the unlimited and it's something that you think you want to see, then if you want to support this and want them to get pushed more, then I say drop the $20.
Yeah.
It's
That's what yeah.
I'm telling people how to spend their money, and I hate doing
Yeah.
that. But and I know, once again, money doesn't grow on trees. But if you want more of this, then there's nothing more valuable than your time.
Yeah.
And it takes time to get ready. It takes time to get up. It takes time to leave the house. It takes time to sit through trailers. It takes time to watch the movie, and it takes time to drive back home.
Mm-hmm.
But if your time is that valuable to you, then maybe you'll spend the $20 to just watch it
Yeah.
of your own home.
Lounge at home and just enjoy yourself.
You don't have to do anything. You could pause it, go to the bathroom, get some food, come back, have some fun with it. And if that's a little far too out your budget, then maybe wait till it comes down in price.
Yeah.
Maybe it comes down to $7, $5, $6, $7, $8, then spend that on it. Because in my opinion, I'm a controversial thought here. If you're waiting for these originals to hit the streaming services that you're paying, I don't think it's helping them. It's not helping the quote unquote theatrical run or whatever.
No, the only thing you're helping is the streaming platform. That's all you're doing, because you're using their platform or whatever, and you're already paying for it. But that's why when there's a window of a rental, it helps. They attributed that to box office rentals and whatnot. It was very similar with movies that would be greenlit for a sequel, because they did really good on a video release back in the day when they did videos and Blu-rays and things of that nature. Like a lot of times they would say, oh, the movie didn't do too well theatrically, but it sold like hotcakes on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, etc. And that would help, because again, people were paying money for that movie, and it would go towards the production and everything else and whatnot. You know what I mean? So yeah, like you mentioned, if they got unlimited, please take advantage. If you can't use
you're
it,
spending. That's a bill. That's a bill every month. And if you're only going to the movies once or twice a month, then you're not using your unlimited to the full extent. And I want to amend something I said with waiting till it comes home. I think that the studios will notice. Obviously, it benefits the streaming service more, but the studios, I believe they will notice if something gets watched. On day one, I think they watch like maybe the first couple weeks to see what's doing well and what isn't doing. I mean, financially, I don't think that it counts towards whatever that movie made. Blu-ray and digital own to own the digital or own the Blu-ray. Obviously, that goes with income that the movie earns. But it's the longer you wait to see a movie, an original movie, the more you're not helping the cause.
That window gets smaller and smaller as time goes on, man.
Right.
Because then they go, oh, people aren't interested. Like, it's not even just, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but most recently, Netflix has been called out for canceling a lot of original shows because they're not giving that long of a win. They're not, people aren't watching it fast enough. So they panic and they have this reaction of like, oh, people aren't watching it fast enough. Right. So they go, all right, just pull it, even though there's an audience, and they go, oh man, we want to see more. It happens. So it's the same thing with the movies. Like what they're gathering is that, okay, people are watching the movie, but they weren't interested in watching it as soon as they could. So they're like, okay, are they watching it because they're just surfing through the streaming platform, whatever. And if it does really well with views, they'll be like, okay, maybe we can make more. But again, let's not put as much budget into these type of movies. They're not pulling a lot of back in return. It's just the ugly nature of the beast, man. It's about making money. They want to make money. They want to make money on these things.
Right. And I mean, and let's just put it out there. And if you can't do any of these, then stop complaining.
Yeah, like you like if it's like, if you're saying they're not making original films, and you've done this and I have done this, where we say, hey, here are some original films for you to watch. and you say, where can I watch it? And I say, you can watch it here right now. It's a $20 rental. And you say, okay, well, I don't feel like spending $20 to see it. Okay, fair enough. And I'm like, all right, well, if you wait at least 2 weeks, it'll drop to like $4.99. They're like, I'm still not gonna do it. I'm gonna wait till it's free. And it's like, all right, man. And at that point, you just forgot the movie exists. You know what I mean? Because it takes a little while. And
then
then
you might not even watch it by then, you know. And let's be realistic. It takes a while before it comes down to that, maybe
it
a
does.
month and a
Mhm.
half after, you know, but eventually it does come down, you know,
Yeah.
and sometimes it never does. It just hits Blu-ray and HD,
Yeah.
and then, you know, you have to wait for sales and stuff like that.
The,
But you don't like what we're getting at is like you don't have to go to the theater if you don't want to support these movies. You
no.
know, it's the easiest way to support the movie,
Mhm.
but eventually you will be able to rent it from the comfort of your home for
Yeah.
full price. You know, if you still don't want to go to the movie theater, you know, and
The
I get it.
the best way to support original film is to watch original films. That's the best
Correct.
way. It's just
Yeah.
is watch it. Is watch it. Just watch it. And you know what? Like again, you go to the movie theaters with your friends, right? You do that. If you want to say, hey, there's this really good movie that I really want to see, I don't want to drive to the theaters. You can invite a buddy to your house. You can
There we
go to
go.
their house and be like, hey, you want to split it? You do 10, I do 10. We play, you know what I mean? Just hey, like you don't feel like you're spending too much if you're like, I don't want to, because sometimes you got the money, but sometimes it's the principle of it. Some people out of principle don't want to pay. I've heard
Right.
people tell me out of principle they didn't want to spend $3.99. It's not because they
Because
didn't
they're
have money.
because they're already paying for the streaming
Exactly.
service.
They're like, well, I'm paying for the streaming service. Why do I want to pay three
Right,
ninety nine?
right.
And
But then
I'm
those
like,
same people will drop a Benjamin going to the movie theater with their whole family in a weekend, you
and
know,
it's just so much money.
or 20 shoot, just themselves, $20
Yeah. And
going to the
again,
movie theater.
like this is not a dig on IP films.
Absolutely not.
If someone told
They
me,
run
Rick,
the business.
yeah, if someone was like, you know what? I saw this trailer for original film. It didn't really do it for me. That's fine. There are films that I have not watched because I was like, I didn't really like the trailer too much.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And then if you see and you're like, hey, it's actually really good. I enjoyed it. I'm like, oh, maybe it was just a bad trailer and I'll go watch it or whatnot. But you know, you just sometimes, you know, you give things a shot. I think that, you know, again, I do this. I go on YouTube every once in a blue and I'll just type in again new movies or movie trailers and I just want to see what's coming out. And
Yeah,
there's
there
been
we
a
go.
bunch of films that I've seen. I think there was a couple movies on that list on the list of 35 films that you posted where the only reason I knew they existed was because I just went on YouTube and typed movie trailers 2022,
There we
see
go.
what was out. And I saw a couple trailers and I was like, oh, I like that. So I would take note. I would save those. I was like, oh, when do they come out?
Right.
This comes out this day. Where's it going? It's going here. Boom, boom, boom. And I would go watch it. You know, and I'm not saying everyone has to have a notebook, but if you really are like, man, I'm just really bummed that there's no
Right.
original films, you know what? Like venture out and search for them because I guarantee you'll find them. I
Yeah.
guarantee you will.
And you know, Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime, they were a little ahead of the game because most of their streaming properties are originals, not just
Yeah.
the shows. They have original movies. You know,
Yeah.
some I didn't go into all the originals, but it's like tons that come out every single year. But so it's almost like the studios following the streaming services. They're like, well, we want to start making more originals because
Yeah. It's a chase, man. It's a
yeah,
chase. It's a chase. Like you tell me that like you think movie studios aren't looking at how much money Wednesday is making Netflix or Stranger Things is making Netflix
right,
and going like, oh, Stranger Things is an original. It pays homage to 80s and things of that nature. It's like we want something like that. Maybe we can do something original and whatnot. But
correct.
I don't know. And I think that's why, and again, we talked about it from time to time. I think that's why some directors are big name directors. You know, back in the day when you thought about a streaming service movie, you thought about a movie that was like, oh, that, you know, it's on streaming because it's probably bad. That was a subconscious thought a lot of people
Sure.
had when streaming services first came out was that, oh, it's a Netflix original movie. But over time, we started seeing really good directors and big name. You got Martin Scorsese who made a Netflix film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
The
got Zack
Irishman.
Snyder making a Netflix film. You know,
Army
like
of the Dead.
you have these big name directors, whether you like them or dislike them. These are very big directors. Michael Bay made a Netflix film. You know what I mean? Like, and they're going to continue to do so. And it's the main reason is because now they're getting to make movies that would not be greenlit by a by a
Correct.
major studio out of fear it wasn't going to make money. Because a studio not greenlighting a film doesn't mean the film is bad or the script is bad.
Right.
It's just they go, man, this is great. Is anybody going to go see this? It's why you have certain films with limited releases. We're talking about The Whale with Brendan Fraser. Brendan's getting high praise and they're talking Oscar nominations left and right for this film. So it's got great word of mouth, but places are so scared no one's going to go pay to see this movie. So it's on a very limited release. And I know,
Right.
I know I am. I think you're doing the same. We're kind of just waiting, like, where is this going to drop so we can watch this movie?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I get it. Like, you're paying for your streaming service, and
Mhm.
that's why you may be hesitant to pay for this, but you're not hesitant when you're dropping that money to go to the movie theater, you know?
It's so
So,
expensive.
so if, and, and I hear, and I've heard this over the years, it's like, well, I don't want to spend money on a movie and then maybe I didn't like it.
Mhm.
That's a completely fair argument. But how many times do we spend money on food that we may or may not enjoy? You know, and I get it's a completely different thing. I know we need food to survive, and I understand that, but that's why we have so many picky eaters. They eat the same thing every
Yeah.
single
Yeah.
time,
Yep.
you know, or people
Yep.
that just order the same thing because they know. But you know, and even if it's a franchise that you absolutely love, there's not a guarantee you're going to enjoy it.
It's not.
There
No.
is no guarantee, and that's the beauty of film is that
Yeah.
we don't know what's going to happen when we go to see it. And to me, that's exciting to me, and I'm
Yeah.
willing to pay for that experience. That this is something I may enjoy, this is something I may not enjoy, but I love film and I
Hmm.
love movies enough that I'm willing to do that. And that's as far as that goes. And I know not everybody is this hardcore
Yeah.
about movies and getting to see them, but I'm starting to hear even from folks that are hardcore, they're getting burned out because it's the same things.
Yes.
It's the same things over and over. You're getting sequels, you're getting franchise films, you're getting superheroes. I didn't think we would start getting some superhero burnout, but I think it's coming.
Yeah, that was one thing that I remember years ago. People were like, "Do you think there was going to be a superhero burnout?" And when I say a few years ago, we're probably talking like 5 to 7 years ago. And
Right.
I was like, I couldn't see it happening. I was like, "No, it's
No, there's no
completely
way.
taken
Right.
over." But over the last 2 years, I know I've started to feel it, I should say. I've started to feel a little bit of burnout. I'm like, oh, okay, like my anticipation for some of these films isn't as high as it used to be. I kind of feel like I'm like you said, like they start to run together a little bit. You've seen the format, you've seen the way it's done, the formula, if you will. And I started to like really create. That's why over like again the past few weeks, few months, I've just been like, hey man, just start watching way more originals, man, way more originals. I've always watched original films, but I made it a point to be like, hey, really make this your primary focus right now because I was just getting burnt out and
Right.
I didn't think that was gonna happen. And I know if I'm feeling it, other people are feeling it. I've seen the discourse online. I've seen chatter start to dim a little bit when it came to certain blockbuster films and IPs, and I'm happy to be able to communicate with other friends and we're talking about more original films than we used to. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like I'm in little chats where all we would talk about is comic book films. That's all we would talk about.
Right.
And the past few weeks we're talking about The Woman King. We're talking about The Fablemans.
There we
You know,
go.
we're talking about Nope. Like I noticed this trend, so I made it a point every time I saw an original film, I would send it to them. I would send it to the chat, like, "Hey, I watched this film. This is what I thought about it. Add it to your list." You know, like Emily the Criminal. I just sent that 2 days ago. I was like, "Hey,
Right.
I watched this. What do you guys think? Let's go. Let's do it." But yeah, there's a burnout happening, and I didn't think that
Right.
was going to happen.
And that's funny because most of our conversations are about DC movies
Yeah,
because
yeah,
because we can talk about that because we're passionate about the characters and we're passionate
yes,
about we've read the comics. These are characters we've been with over the years. We got a ton of TV shows that we got to watch, but to balance that out, we also talk about movies, other
hmm
movies, and we can do that. We can
yeah,
talk about these other movies because it's just refreshing. It's just refreshing, and that's why I keep going back. And if you're watching or listening to this, maybe that can prompt you. That feeling of, man, I've seen that before, or man, that wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be. Then maybe you should start taking the chance on these originals. And like I said, Can't always go to the theater. Fine, pay the 20 at home to rent it at home. If not, wait for it to drop. Pay the $5 to $7 to $8 as far as that goes. And then after that, then we're back to that, that point before. Then you're not really doing much to help it at that point. Then it's at least try to watch a day one drop. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't. There's I wanted to bring this back to the formula because I don't want to forget this. I remember hitting you up about this, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I remember when I watched The Last Duel from Ridley Scott, and I texted you and I said, "Hey, I think the movie's great, but it made me feel something I haven't felt in a long time." Because with the comic book films, you start to feel the same emotions, the same this, the same that, stakes, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember watching The Last Duel, and I was like, man, I haven't felt a real anxiety from a film, excitement, adrenaline.
Right.
Like I watched it at home because they put it on streaming HBO Max, and I was like, oh, I can finally watch it. I didn't get to go to theaters, and I watched it, and I was on my living room, I was on my couch, had all the lights out, and I was gripping the couch
Great.
with just anxiety. And I was like, and I remember telling you, like, I haven't felt that in a while.
Right.
And at first I couldn't understand why I wasn't feeling this when I was watching movies. And it's because, again, it wasn't the typical massive IP that I had been watching for the past few years. It was something completely different. And because of its differences, it like radiated, you know what I mean? So like, I think that when it's another reason why people should seek out original films more, because you're going to feel something a little different.
Right.
If you're like, oh, these movies aren't really doing it for me, check some of these out. Cause like you said, we can talk about the comic book films, we talk about DC, but we also make time to talk about these other things.
Right.
And it keeps things fresh.
And you bring up a good point. As another thing with original films is, I mean, let's be honest. Most of the time, an ending, you can kind of figure out an ending in some way or another. But I've personally found when it's an original movie, I can't always figure out where the ending's going to go. When it's an IP, the good guys win, the bad guys lose. I mean,
yeah,
we already know
exactly.
where it's going to go. Almost all the time, it's low stakes. But with the original movie, it's I don't think I know where that's going to go. Or lately, I've been getting hit with twists halfway through a movie that I didn't see coming. We just talked about Glass Onion. That twist halfway through the movie, I didn't see that coming
at all.
Nope.
And I love that. I love that a movie can keep me on my toes. You know what I mean?
Right. All right. Well, it looks like we've exhausted our time for tonight. So I just gave it away when we record.
It's so good.
So I did want to remind you folks, if you enjoy the Panel Bros, please give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. And as far as original films, let us know how you feel about our discussion and let us know your thoughts on original films. And if you think you might want to start watching more in the future, if you think you're just going to let them go, if you were influenced a little bit by us, please let us know. And I wanted to thank you folks for checking us out. We are the Panel Bros, and thank you for coming to the panel.